We're going to move on with. I'm very excited to bring our guest onto the show today, Mr. Ross Rebagliati. Are you there? Do we have Ross on the line?
I'm here.
Hey, Ross, how are you?
How are you guys?
I'm good. I'm good. So Ross is calling us from Kelowna on Skype, and let's tell the folks a little bit who might be younger than you and I, Ross, exactly why you are who you are. You're a snowboarder extraordinaire a long time ago, and you were the first one. You were in the first wave of snowboarders into the Olympics, isn't that right?
Yeah, correct. Well, more or less. There were some guys that came before me that, might have been there, but yeah, I was the first wave that made it to the Olympics that snowboarding was indoctrinated into.
And how did you decide? Like, you were a little kid, I guess, 10, 15 years old, snowboarding, getting pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I started snowboarding, and then, by the time I was in Nagano, I was, 26. And but yeah, I started off when I was 15. Snowboarding wasn't allowed in Canada yet. It was 1987, and I had been ski racing for the last for 7 years leading up to that point, when I discovered snowboarding through some friends who had been to the States, and so I ended up, getting one. And over the first year, we went down to Washington to ride at Mount Baker, where we were allowed to
Right.
snowboard. And then the next year, here and there, some resorts started opening up in Canada, like Silver Star and Cypress Bowl, Whistler. And so,
Beautiful
yeah,
skiing
and
up
then I was
there.
just off to the races. Oh, unreal.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great spot in the world. So, where were you? Like, how did you get to be in a place where you went, "Oh, I can do this in the Olympics"? Like, you're in the first category. I mean, if you knew about pole vaulting or something, you could have known about that a long time ago. But how did you just decide I'm good enough to get in the Olympics and then be in the first wave?
Yeah, well, so from 88 to around 90, I was on the amateur tour here in British Columbia, just touring around as a teenager in high school on the weekends, doing contests. I was good. I was winning contests, freestyle stuff mostly. And, we didn't really have like the equipment for both. You just raced on
Sure.
your snowboard. It didn't make a difference. So I transitioned from that after high school, and I made it into the snowboard magazines during the 80s and early 90s, and I parlayed that into an opportunity to join a pro team down in, based in Oregon, which I did. And, that got me onto the World Cup tour in Europe later on that same year. And then I spent a good 7 or 8 years on the World Cup tour. Where I was also successful. Not at first. My first year, I wasn't the most successful, but
Falling down
by
a
the
lot.
time I was in the second season of the World Cup, I was making the podium. And, by my third season on World Cup, I was winning races. So as it turned out, leading up to Nagano, from probably about 95, 96, 97, or maybe it was 1 year earlier, I was ranked in the top three in the world for 3 years in a row. And
Three for three.
so we knew in 94 that we were going to be competing in Nagano in 98. So we had 4 years of build up. I was
Okay.
at the top of my game, ranked number one in the world when we knew it, that we were going to Nagano. So I kind of knew. I just knew. I didn't, I still had to do a bunch of qualification races leading up, like right before Nagano. And, to make just a quick story, I actually didn't get selected for the team briefly.
Oh no.
And then I had to argue my way onto it.
Now, don't tell me you
And
were caught smoking a joint.
no, it was just ridiculous. Like I ended up, the criteria was for the Canadian national team was past results plus how you did in the Canadian qualification races. So
Okay.
I did two of those qualification races. I was second out of the Canadians. We had a stacked team, by the way. Mark Fawcett, JCJ Anderson, also world-class athletes on the team. And so I was happy to get second place. Those guys also had huge, creds to And
Who doesn't?
so I got in, and then the rest is history.
The rest is
basically.
history. So let's just refresh people's memories. I know there are a lot of younger folks listening to the show that might not, I remember it vividly, but you take us through a little bit. So you're in the Olympics, or you're at the Olympics, or slightly before the Olympics. You're tested, right? And then
Yeah. So basically, I did my race, and
which you won, which was great.
I won the race, and we did a little podium ceremony, preliminary, right in the finish line, and then we were ushered into the Army tent to do the drug test, where we did it and carried on. We went to the official award ceremonies, and then we basically partied all night long. By the morning time, we were still partying, or we woke up and started partying.
Yeah.
Again, because we were done after 4 years of build-up.
Sure.
And coach came in. He said, "Everybody out except for you, Ross. Sit down." And I just fucking got the cold sweats, and I knew I was in trouble, because all my life I've always been in trouble for something.
Yeah.
And they told me that I tested positive for something. They didn't know what it was, and I kind of knew. I told them that I knew what it was, but I didn't. I wasn't using it, but the only thing I could have been was weed, because that's the only thing that I'm exposed to that potentially might be against the rules.
But it wasn't cannabis or marijuana or whatever they wanted to call it. It wasn't on the list of banned substances, isn't that right?
Correct, but we didn't know that. We thought it was.
Oh, you thought it was. So you're even aware that it might be. Oh, you think it might be.
Yeah, well, I stopped smoking. I was pretty much stopped smoking for a couple of years already, but we were, at the end of the season, we felt like there was some time. So anyway, in April of '97, that's when I made a mental note to myself that in April I would stop smoking and make sure that I passed my test for Nagano.
Right.
And, that's what I did. But, the reality was that I was still immersed in the cannabis culture for all of those months. And, I was racing, I was on tour, I wasn't using, but when I was back home in Whistler, I was just with my buddies, with my bros. And, I had a couple of guys pass away in avalanches and around that time too. And we had, there was some wakes and whatnot, but I mean, that's what it was attributed to. But to be honest, I mean, I was just in the cannabis culture every day. I wasn't using it myself. I thought that was good enough, but as it turned out, I still tested positive for it.
So it turns out that you can be as irresponsible as the government says and use cannabis and not only be able to contribute to society, which goes against what they say. And I think this is part of the reason they don't like it, is because the more and more people use it openly and just talk about it, who actually achieve things, it completely undermines the perception that there is no value to this particular substance. Ask Michael Phelps. I mean, they hate the fact that, what is this guy, like, got 15 gold medals or something? And he's an avowed cannabis user. So what does that tell you? I mean, it's the other side of the coin. This stuff can be really effective.
Aren't you glad you didn't need surgery?
Absolutely. I mean, the CBD side of things right now in the cannabis industry is really blowing up and legitimizing cannabis use among athletes and professional sports organizations. So much so that recently WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, has taken CBD off the list of banned substances.
Right.
So, there's progress being made, millimeter by millimeter. And this was a big step, I think. In Rio this year, during the Summer Olympics, they said they weren't going to be testing, for cannabis and whatnot. So, I think, the IOC has somewhat of a responsibility to promote a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah,
and,
sure, of course.
To tell the truth about, the way the world turns, basically. And I think they have that on their shoulders now.
I think it's fascinating that they tell you that it's of no value, though. And clearly, there was some problem with the fact that you had taken cannabis and somebody had found this in your system. And then they tell you that, they need to take and this is all for false morals or something, or false science or whatever it is, or a sense of control that fell through from the people that removed it from you. Thankfully, they gave it back to you, and you are the proud owner, and you did win the race, and you do have the hardware to show for it.
Correct.
Which is great.
You know, and yeah, so I mean, the thing that's interesting to me is that, and I think everyone could agree at the time, and I like to say it's performance enhancing, but it isn't directly performance enhancing.
No.
I think the move that they made in '98 to make a big deal out of my story wasn't about a level playing field. It was a social issue, and I'm not sure why they wanted to jump on a social issue. Their mandate is to create a level playing field.
Right.
And the other thing that's interesting is I ended up in jail in Japan.
Oh, really?
How many athletes who test positive have Olympic scandals for steroids, which are illegal?
Sure, and dangerous.
They don't go to jail.
No. That's incredible.
Anyway, just saying.
So this is what I love about it, because as I've looked at it over the years and seen your business, which I'd love to talk to you about now, you were only successful in this business, and this is not an insult. This is a fantastic thing. You're obviously a pioneer. Like I said in the intro, you've got it in your blood, because had they not kicked up a fuss, which they should not have done, Ross, you should have not received this notoriety. No offense. You should have not gone to jail, and you should not have had to appear in Jay Leno. You should have just been able to win your medal, and then, like a lot of other folks, we may not have heard from you again. But you carried this cannabis mantle with you. You got internationally famous with it. So did Canada, and now you've parlayed this into a functioning business once again, dispelling the notion that no one using cannabis can contribute to society. So tell us all about Ross's Gold, and tell everybody how all of that works and what you're doing there.
Sure. Well, Ross's Gold is a cannabis company. It's a Canadian cannabis company born here in British Columbia, the home of the world famous BC Bud. And, when we first launched 5 years ago, the model was a branding and licensing model. We weren't sure, what the direction of the federal government was. We were living in the Harper era, and cannabis business just wasn't, looking like the brightest move at the time. But I personally wanted to start the company up during Prohibition. I wanted to get known for being part of the movement. I wanted to help out and contribute in a way, and I wasn't sure how. I didn't want to be perceived as an outsider, to the industry and whatnot. And just like in snowboarding, there were a lot of guys that came before me that got it to be allowed on the lifts. And there was a lot of people that kind of set the stage for me to sort of, take advantage of the work that had been done on cannabis and help promote, the positive, story of cannabis and to lift the stigmas and get rid of the stereotypes. As an Olympic athlete, gold medalist, no less, I felt like there would be a certain mission in my life after the Olympics if I was to win. And clearly this was the card, the hand that was dealt to me. And it was obvious, from the very beginning that, I was going to have to start Ross's Gold. It did take a couple of decades almost, though. You
made that decision a long time ago to start a company.
I knew right away, instantly, that this was big. I mean, I was already a big cannabis believer, obviously, before getting to Nagano. And we were just, it was like the Neanderthal times of cannabis back then. It was really illegal and not cool. To, I had problems with sponsorships and to
Tell
this
me
day,
about it.
traveling. So... Right. And so anyways, I felt like, not only to vindicate myself, but to also bring justice to, the cannabis culture and cannabis period. I needed to create a positive story about cannabis and bring it out of the shadows into the light, tell the truth about it. Create a company and a brand, Ross's Gold, to, perpetuate, the cannabis story and get it out there and to push the limit federally, to push the limits of the law, to open our store early. We've got 25 kinds of flour. We got every kind of shatter and butter. We got all the edibles.
Okay, don't cut out on us.
Infused drinks. We have a coffee bar. This place is balls out. I mean, you walk into the Ross Gold store and people sometimes look for, where's the jewelry? Like, is this a jewelry store or is this what is this? And, I'm proud to say that, we've got a line of glass in there. We've got a clothing line in there. Got all
When you
kinds
say
of
glass, you mean
cannabis
like
products.
smoking pipes, etc.?
Yeah, rossgoldglass.com. You can check it out. We have 100 different pieces. Beautiful packaging, leather cases, leather boxes for all the pieces and whatnot.
Nice.
And yeah, so we got a franchise model, and we're basically selling franchises right now as we speak across the country, not to be opened before July 1st, and of course depending on which province and municipality you're going to be living in. But
well, how do you handle
popular.
the legalities of it? I mean, if technically speaking, Canada doesn't have a plan in place at all, but they don't have a plan that's going to be happening until July 1st. So ostensibly, what you're doing right now is illegal, or how do you
Correct.
look at it? It's illegal right now.
It's illegal. We're in a gray zone. BC is different than Ontario. Okay, the culture here is different.
Yeah.
Just to start off with, so we have more of a track record with cannabis here as far as numbers and safety, and the reality of cannabis is more out in the open in British Columbia. So, but we took a risk, and I put my neck out there on the chopping block, and I got the store with my name's all over it.
Well, I hear you. You're a brother in that way. That's why I'm so happy you were able to come on and talk about this. So I want to just sum up what we've got so far. Here's a gentleman who has a given talent, and he's been able to parlay that into excellence and winning a gold medal. And the whole time he's been a cannabis user. And then I'm going to have to hear about how cannabis doesn't, do anything to help you. So then he wins the gold medal, and then the false pompous morality of those that didn't want him to have that gold medal and didn't want a gold medalist who has so been using cannabis, but then they figured to give it to him anyway. And because they made that error in judgment from supposedly clear-thinking minds that don't use cannabis, Ross has been able to basically stick it in their face. It's kind of an in-your-face response, isn't it?
It is. It feels great.
Well, I hear that. So give us again a couple of the products you have and tell us what is so special about them. I don't even understand butter. How does that go?
Well, it's an extract. So we have a critical extraction machine that is very expensive. It's the oil industry uses similar machines, so we can basically get the essential oils right out of the cannabis.
Does this use heat or pressing or?
Both pressure, heat. Some of it has some of the processes use solvents. Some are solventless. So we do basically all the different kinds at the highest quality level. So if we're using butane, we actually use a kind of butane called purtane, and we're able to clean it out perfectly. When you smell this stuff, the butter or the shatter, they're almost the same thing. The shatter is actually hard and brittle, and the terpenes that you can smell when you get it down to that pure form is unbelievable. You wouldn't believe that it's that you're smelling a product from cannabis. It's very like the citrus, the lemon smells, the orange smells.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And then so Roscoe, we've got vaporizer pens. I've got a new pen out by Roken called the Cyclone Special Edition, especially for extracts. We've got throwaway Ross Gold pens with pure distillate in there.
Okay, let me ask you about that.
We got everything.
Tell me a little bit about the throwaway pens, because I'm starting to have a bit of a problem with that myself in the amount of waste in general. Is that a concern yet? I mean, we don't want it's like you don't want a big slag heap with a whole bunch of batteries in there leaking into the ground. So is there any kind of consideration on those types of disposables? They're almost the same as the rechargeables.
So yeah, we're coming out with one that you can refill the cartridges so that you can use it multiple times before you dispose of it.
Fair enough.
We're going to be basically switching over from the throwaway version to one where it's rechargeable, that you can replace the cartridges, because like as you mentioned, it's completely unethical to be throwing away batteries and things like that.
Well, it's amazing to me. I think a lot of the stuff that goes on that's I would call unethical is a result of the fact that in so many cases there's a legal oppressive system around it, such as in California, where in the manufacture of a lot of of these products in California. They've been finding here and there, and this isn't cool, and I don't support this, where they've been finding like those little cylinders that you use when you go camping for camping fuel, like propane or butane or whatever, and huge amounts of them just rotting and leaking in piles here and there in the wilds, and they're the wilds of California showing up, and it's a bit of a problem. I don't think it would be there though if everything was legalized enough that you're not punishing people for coming up with a product, and they'd be able to be more responsible if they weren't concerned about telltale signs.
That's
everywhere.
just it. Yeah, 100%. That's just it. And for the most part, that's why dispensaries haven't been at the level that they should be, because why would they invest money when they're just going to get shut down potentially the next day? So
and then the government will tell you, see, these people don't know what they're doing, they're making a mess, and they're spinning it around.
They do know what they're doing. They're not stupid. They're not going to waste money when so like that's one of the risks that we took, as we actually did build out our store. But yeah, I mean, you're right, with unregulation comes all of this stupidness that doesn't have to happen. And and it goes all the way down the line. It's not just with cannabis. There's lots of things like this.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy that you came on and you figured out a way to parlay what was originally a bad thing. You've lost your medal. You're a bad boy. And then they gave it back to you. And because of the reason, you've turned it into something that is it's still illegal. My hat is off to you. Well, it's not. I'm going to keep it on. But it's amazing that you've done this and you're doing this and you're standing there telling them that you're doing this and coming on the show. And we're going to put some. I want to get some links out. I want to understand exactly everybody listening around the world. This guy's a world gold medalist from Canada. So tell us again your website, and is there a Twitter handle and a basic. Just an awareness of where we can find you or where we can visit you if we come to beautiful Kelowna.
Absolutely. So first of all, the rossgold.com is our corporate site that links you up to our store, which is rossgoldmj.ca.
And that's spelled ROSSGOLD?
Yeah, GOLD, Rossgold mj.ca is the store. And then I have a Instagram is Ross Rebagliati 98. Basically post all kinds of stuff about growing weed there, and you can see my outdoor crop that I turned out this summer. Interestingly enough, I had the RCMP at my house twice over the summer.
Is that right? Having tea and brownies, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I had 7 big MK Ultra plants that I was growing, and I've got licenses for them. I got licenses for twice as many, but I only had 7. And
why were they there?
There was a neighbor complaining, and they came 2 times, and then both times I showed them my license, I showed them the plants, and both times they apologized and left and told me that we had actually a pretty good conversation the one time about my store and about the industry in general. And it was a good, honest conversation, I have to say. That's
good. I know there's a lot of cops out there that understand what's going on. It's a lot of the police chiefs, and it's very uncomfortable to me that when they make the move towards legalization, the first body of people they're going to talk to are the police officers, and they're whining and complaining about how much more money it's going to cost to go legal. Whereas it shouldn't really cost more to go legal.
That's just a joke.
It is.
They're just asking for money because they think there's an opportunity for them to get money, but they don't need any more money.
No.
They need less money.
That's it. They need less money to police. But while they may need, if they're going to stay stuck in this ridiculous mental construct, while they may need more money to police, they don't seem to consider the facts of the overall health benefits that so many people are going to experience on the other side of the ledger. You're going to have plummeting healthcare costs, overall at the end of the day with this stuff.
Huge revenues from taxing
and they don't put that into the mix.
Yeah. I know.
John Tory, mayor of Toronto, says, this isn't about making money. Yeah, okay. John Tory's never been about making money. Okay. So this is fantastic. I'm so glad you were able to come on, and I hope you come on again soon, because as we head into hopefully some altered legislation, so we don't have to then undo the mess that these people have put together, and we're going to want to hear how successful your launch is. Maybe I'm going to be somewhere on July 1st to celebrate somehow. the new
May as well come to Kelowna.
awareness, and I may as well come to Kelowna to do it more than just as much as anywhere else. Ross, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And
My pleasure.
putting
Thank
up
you for having me.
with the tardy start. But I figured if I could get away with being a little bit more late than being a little bit late, it would be with a cannabis-consuming snowboarder.
You bet. You bet it is. I'm going to go consume some cannabis right now.
Fantastic. I hope you're doing it illegally and that you enjoy it and derive great benefit from it.
You know I will.
Thanks, Ross. We'll be in touch. Thanks very much for coming on.
You bet. It was my pleasure.
Oh,
Talk
mine
soon,
too.
bro.
Thanks very much. Ross Rebagliati, folks, not contributing to society, not contributing to the good, the greater good. Obviously an irresponsible individual because he's addled his mind with this particular substance. And of course, I'm being facetious all the way through because why wouldn't I be? Ross is building an empire on a bed of lies, and anybody that wants to start a new business, maybe take another look at what they're doing in their life, they don't like their crummy job. This is a burgeoning industry